Sophie Pierce sat on a cold bus stop bench at 10 p.m. on Christmas Eve, crying in the falling snow. 9 years old, designer coat, expensive backpack with her name embroidered in gold thread, and completely, utterly alone. She'd been sitting there for 20 minutes, watching families walk by with shopping bags and laughter, when a voice startled her. "Hey, honey, you okay?" Sophie looked up to see a man standing a respectful distance away. He was maybe 40, wearing a worn jacket that had seen better days, carrying a small boy, maybe 7, on his back. The boy was asleep. "I'm fine," Sophie lied, wiping her tears quickly. "You're sitting alone at a bus stop on Christmas Eve at 10 o'clock at night? That's not fine." The man moved closer, but not threateningly. "Where are your parents?" "My dad's at work, like always." "Does he know you're here?" Sophie shook her head. The man, Thomas, glanced at the little boy sleeping on his back, then sat down on the bench, keeping distance between them. "I'm Thomas. This is my son Jake. We're staying at the shelter 3 blocks over. Where do you live?" Sophie pointed vaguely toward the wealthy part of town. "Cedar Hills? The big white house?" Thomas knew Cedar Hills. Mansions, each one worth millions. That's 2 miles away. In the snow. "Did you walk here?" "I ran away." Sophie's voice broke. "My dad canceled Christmas dinner again. He said he had an important call. He always has an important call. I don't think he even remembers it's Christmas." Thomas was quiet for a moment. Then he said gently, "If he didn't care about you, you wouldn't be crying right now." "What?" "You're crying because you love him, and you want him to see you. If you didn't care, you'd just be angry. But you're sad. That means you still hope he'll notice." Sophie stared at this homeless stranger who just articulated what she couldn't. "Come on," Thomas said, standing carefully so he didn't wake Jake. "Let's get you home before your dad loses his mind with worry. He probably hasn't even noticed I'm gone. Trust me, he's noticed." What Thomas didn't say, he'd give anything, to have his daughter back to notice. But his daughter had died with his wife in the car accident that had taken everything from him. All he had left was Jake. And Jake had a father who would never, ever stop noticing him. Even if they were homeless. Before we continue, if you enjoy stories that move us and transform us, tales of justice, legacy, resilience, and love, consider subscribing to Becca's Stories. We showcase the beautiful perspectives that emerge from life's changes, offering narratives of profound moral strength and unwavering character. Now back to our story. Jonathan Pierce sat in his home office on the 3rd floor of his Cedar Hills mansion, staring at his computer screen. 55 years old, CEO of Pierce Financial Group, net worth $200 million, one of the most successful men in the city. And he was about to miss Christmas dinner with his daughter, again. His housekeeper, Maria, knocked on the door. "Mr. Pierce, Sophie is waiting in the dining room. It's 8:15. You said dinner would be at 8. "I know, Maria. Tell her I'll be down in 10 minutes. This call is running long." "Sir, you said that 30 minutes ago." "I said 10 minutes, Maria." Maria left quietly. Jonathan returned to his video conference call with investors in Tokyo. This merger was worth $50 million. It required his attention. Sophie would understand. She always understood. Downstairs, Sophie Pierce sat alone at a dining table set for two, candles lit, Christmas music playing softly, a meal prepared by Maria cooling on the plates. This was the third Christmas in a row her father had done this. Last year, he'd been on a call until 11 p.m. By the time he came down, Sophie had gone to bed. The year before that, he'd flown to London on Christmas morning for an emergency meeting, left her with Maria and a pile of expensive presents. Sophie was 9 years old. She had a room full of toys she never played with, a closet full of designer clothes she didn't care about, a trust fund worth millions that meant nothing. What she didn't have was a father who showed up. At 9 p.m., when Maria brought hot chocolate to check on her, Sophie wasn't in the dining room. At 9:15, Maria checked Sophie's bedroom. Empty. At 9:20, Maria ran up to Jonathan's office. "Mr. Pierce, Sophie's gone." "What do you mean, gone?" "She's not in the house. I've checked everywhere. Her coat is missing, her backpack." Jonathan bolted from his chair, nearly knocking over his computer. "Call the police, now." Thomas Wright and his 7-year-old son Jake stood in line at Hope Haven Homeless Shelter, waiting for their assigned bunk for the night. 6 months earlier, Thomas had been a project manager at a construction company. Good job, nice apartment, stable life with his wife Rachel and their 2 children, Jake and Emma, who'd been 5. Then Rachel and Emma died in a car accident. Thomas fell apart. Couldn't work, couldn't pay rent, lost everything. By the time he pulled himself together enough to try, he had been evicted. His job was gone, and he was living in his car with Jake, trying to figure out how to survive. Eventually, the car died too. Now they were here. Hope Haven Shelter. Temporary beds, communal meals, the charity of strangers. But Jake was warm, Jake was fed, Jake was safe. That was all that mattered. "Daddy," Jake said, tugging on Thomas's jacket, "can we walk by the Christmas lights before bed, just for a minute?" Thomas looked at his son's hopeful face. They had nothing, but Jake still believed in Christmas magic. "Yeah, buddy, we can do that." They walked through the wealthy neighborhood near the shelter, Cedar Hills, looking at the elaborate Christmas displays. Houses covered in lights, inflatable Santas, professional decorations. Jake pressed his nose against the iron gates of the biggest mansions, eyes wide with wonder. That's when Thomas saw the little girl at the bus stop, crying, alone, on Christmas Eve. And Thomas Wright, who had nothing, did what any decent father would do. He stopped to help.
"My address is in my backpack," Sophie said quietly as they walked through the snow. "There's a luggage tag." Thomas pulled out the fancy leather backpack and checked the tag. 2247 Cedar Hills Drive. He knew that house. Everyone did. The biggest mansion in the neighborhood. The one with the 12-foot Christmas tree visible through the front windows. The one that screamed wealth. "Your dad must be really worried," Thomas said. "He probably hasn't even looked up from his computer." "Sophie, I promise you if my daughter were missing for 5 minutes, I'd burn the world down looking for her." "You have a daughter?" Thomas's face changed. Pain flickered across it. "I did. She died. Car accident. 6 months ago. Her and my wife." Sophie stopped walking. "I'm sorry." "Me too." Thomas adjusted the sleeping Jake on his back. "But I'd give anything, everything, for one more Christmas with her. Your dad has that chance, every year, and he's wasting it." "Then why are you bringing me back to him?" "Because he doesn't know he's wasting it yet. But he will after tonight." They reached the Pierce mansion, at 10:30 p.m. The scene was chaos. Police cars, searchlights, officers with radios, neighbors standing on their lawns, and Jonathan Pierce standing in his driveway in a suit jacket thrown over his pajamas, looking more terrified than Thomas had ever seen another human being look. "Sophie!" Jonathan was screaming into the night. "Sophie, where are you?" Thomas took a breath, then walked up the driveway with Sophie beside him and Jake on his back. A police officer saw them first. "Sir, stop right there." Jonathan spun around, saw Sophie, saw the homeless man with the child on his back. "Sophie!" Jonathan ran, nearly slipping on the ice. Sophie started crying and ran toward her father. They collided in the middle of the driveway, Jonathan dropping to his knees to hold her. "Oh my God! Oh my God! Sophie, I thought, where were you? What happened? Are you okay? Did he hurt you?" "No, Daddy, no! He saved me!" Sophie pulled back. "I ran away. I was at the bus stop, and Thomas found me and brought me home." Jonathan looked up at Thomas, who was standing at a respectful distance, swaying slightly under Jake's weight. You found her?" "Yes, sir. At the bus stop on Maple and 5th. She's alone. It's snowing. She's 9. Thomas said it simply, without judgment, but the implications were clear. Jonathan stood slowly, still holding Sophie's hand. He took in Thomas's appearance, the worn jacket, the sleeping child, the way Thomas's shoes had holes in them. You're, Jonathan hesitated. "Homeless?" "Yes, sir. Staying at Hope Haven Shelter, 3 blocks from where I found your daughter." "And you brought her back?" "Of course I brought her back. She's a child. On Christmas Eve. Far from home." Thomas shifted Jake's weight. "She was crying because she said you didn't care about her." Jonathan flinched like he'd been slapped. That's not... I was working." "I know." Thomas's voice was gentle but firm. "She told me. Important call. Like always." The police officers were approaching now, but Jonathan waved them off. "Sir, we need to verify." "No. This man helped my daughter. He's not..." Jonathan stopped, looking at Thomas properly for the first time. "What's your name?" "Thomas Wright. This is my son, Jake." "Thank you, Thomas." I don't know how to thank you." "Spend Christmas with your daughter. That's how you thank me." Thomas turned to leave, but Sophie's voice stopped him. "Wait! You can't go back to the shelter. It's Christmas." "Sophie," Jonathan started. "Daddy, please. Thomas saved me. And it's snowing, and Jake is just a little kid." Jonathan looked at his daughter, then at Thomas, then at the sleeping child on Thomas's back. He thought about the 3rd-floor office where he'd been sitting an hour ago, oblivious to his daughter's pain. He thought about this homeless man who'd found his daughter and brought her home instead of just walking past. "Please," Jonathan said quietly. "Come inside, both of you. Let us give you dinner, a warm bed. It's the least we can do." Thomas shook his head. "We don't need charity." "It's not charity. It's a thank you. And honestly," Jonathan's voice cracked, "it's me learning what's actually important. Please, stay." Thomas looked at Jake, sleeping peacefully despite everything. His son deserved one Christmas that felt normal. "Okay," Thomas said quietly. "Thank you."
An hour later, Jake and Sophie were asleep in Sophie's bedroom. Jake in the spare bed that had never been used, Sophie in her own. Thomas and Jonathan sat in the kitchen, drinking coffee that Maria had made before quietly leaving them alone. "I need to ask you something," Jonathan said, "and I need you to be honest." "Okay." "Sophie said she ran away because I don't notice her. Is that true? Is that what she told you?" Thomas was quiet for a moment. Then, "She said you canceled Christmas dinner for a work call, that you do that a lot, that she doesn't think you remember it's Christmas." Jonathan put his face in his hands. "I was closing a $50 million merger. And she was sitting at a bus stop at 10 o'clock at night in December, crying. I didn't know she'd run away. I thought she was in her room." "When was the last time you checked?" Jonathan opened his mouth, then closed it. He genuinely didn't know. "When was the last time you had dinner with her?" Thomas pressed gently. "Not dinner where you answered emails on your phone. Actual dinner, where you asked about her day, her friends, what she's learning in school." I don't... "When was the last time you tucked her into bed?" Jonathan felt tears forming. "I work late. She's usually asleep when." "When was the last time you told her you love her?" "I tell her all the time." "When?" "This morning, I think. Or maybe yesterday, or..." Jonathan trailed off. Thomas took a sip of coffee. "Can I tell you something?" "Please." 6 months ago, I had everything. Good job, nice apartment, beautiful wife, 2 kids, Jake and Emma. Emma was 5, smart, funny, loved to sing. Thomas's voice shook slightly. "And I was a lot like you. Not CEO rich, but always working, always trying to climb, always telling myself I was doing it for them, building a future, providing." "What happened?" "My wife Rachel was driving Emma to dance class. A drunk driver ran a red light. They both died instantly." Thomas wiped his eyes. "And you know what the worst part is?" "What?" "That morning, Emma asked me to take her to school. She wanted to show me her classroom's butterfly garden. I said I was too busy. Had an important meeting. Rachel took her instead." Thomas looked directly at Jonathan. "That was the last conversation I ever had with my daughter. 'Daddy, can you take me to school?' 'Not today, sweetie. Daddy's busy.'" Jonathan felt like he couldn't breathe. "After they died, I fell apart. Lost my job, lost my apartment, lost everything. And you know what I learned living in a car with Jake? Living in shelters?" "What?" "That none of it mattered. The job, the apartment, the money, none of it. All that mattered was time with my kids. And I'd wasted Emma's entire life chasing things that didn't matter." Thomas set down his coffee cup. "You still have a chance, Jonathan. Sophie is alive. She's here. She loves you. That's why she was crying. But she won't wait forever. Eventually, kids stop crying and start just not caring. And when that happens, you've lost them. Even if they're still living in your house." Jonathan wiped his face roughly. "What do I do?" "Stop working. Start showing up. It's that simple." "I can't just stop working. I have a company, responsibilities, people depending on..." "Your daughter is depending on you. And she's more important than all of them combined. You know I'm right." Jonathan was quiet for a long time. Then, "You're right. I know you're right. I don't know how to stop. How to just be present." "You start tomorrow, Christmas morning. You wake up, you go to your daughter's room, you make breakfast together, you open presents slowly, not rushing to check your phone. You play with her. You watch whatever movie she wants to watch. You just be there. That's it? That's everything.
Christmas morning. Jonathan woke up at 7 a.m. to the sound of children's laughter. For a moment, he was confused. Then he remembered. Thomas and Jake, staying in the guest room. Jonathan went downstairs in his pajamas, something he never did, and found Sophie, Jake, and Thomas in the kitchen. Sophie was teaching Jake how to make pancakes. Thomas was supervising, smiling at his son's concentration. "Daddy!" Sophie looked shocked to see him. "You're awake. It's only 7. "I wanted to make Christmas breakfast with you." Sophie's face lit up in a way Jonathan hadn't seen in years. They made pancakes together, all 5 of them, including Maria, who Jonathan insisted join them. It was messy, batter everywhere. Jake got flour in his hair. Sophie laughed so hard she snorted. It was perfect. After breakfast, they opened presents in the living room. Sophie had dozens of expensive gifts that Jonathan had ordered online and Maria had wrapped. Designer clothes, latest tech, things that cost thousands. Jake had nothing except a small stuffed dog that Thomas had found at a thrift store and saved for weeks to buy. "Wow," Jake breathed, looking at Sophie's mountain of presents. "You're so lucky." Sophie looked at her presents, then at Jake clutching his one stuffed dog, then at her father sitting on the floor in his pajamas for the first time she could remember. "Want to share?" Sophie asked Jake. "We can play with all of this together." "Really?" "Yeah. It's more fun with a friend anyway." For the next 3 hours, Jonathan Pierce sat on his living room floor and played with his daughter and 2 strangers who taught him more about fatherhood in 12 hours than he'd learned in 9 years. His phone rang 17 times. He didn't answer once. At one point, Thomas caught his eye and nodded approvingly. Later that afternoon, while the kids were watching a movie, Thomas found Jonathan in the study. "We should go," Thomas said. "You've been more than generous, but we should get back to the shelter." "What if you didn't?" "What?" Jonathan turned around. "What if you didn't go back? What if I offered you a job and an apartment?" Thomas frowned. "I don't need charity." "It's not charity. I'm being selfish. I need someone around who will call me on my bullshit, who will remind me what actually matters. And I think that's you." "Jonathan." "I own apartment buildings, empty units. You and Jake could have one, fully furnished, no rent. I can't accept, and I need a facilities manager for Pierce Financial Group headquarters, someone who knows construction, project management, oversight." Thomas stared. "That was my job before I lost everything." "I know. Sophie told me." "See? I'm learning to listen. Salary is $85,000 a year. Health insurance, benefits. You'd be helping me while I help you." "Why are you doing this?" "Because you brought my daughter home. Because you taught me something I should have known all along. And because you lost your daughter and would give anything to have her back. And I almost lost mine while she was standing right in front of me." Thomas was quiet for a long moment. Then, "If I take this job, you need to promise me something. Anything. Every day at 5 p.m., you go home. No excuses, no exceptions. You have dinner with Sophie. You help with homework, you tuck her in, you show up. Because I can't do that with Emma anymore, but you can do it with Sophie. And if you waste that chance, I'll quit. I swear to God, I'll quit." Jonathan smiled through tears. "Deal." 3 months later, Thomas and Jake lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in a building Jonathan owned. Fully furnished, warm, safe. Thomas worked as facilities manager at Pierce Financial Group. Reliable, respected, rebuilding his life piece by piece. And Jonathan? Jonathan left work every day at 5 p.m. sharp. His executives were shocked. His investors were confused. But Sophie? Sophie was thriving. She and Jake had become best friends. They did homework together after school. They played in the building's courtyard. They were both happier than they'd been in months. One evening, Jonathan came home at 5:02. Traffic. To find Thomas and Jake having dinner with Sophie and Maria. "Sorry I'm late," Jonathan said, grinning. "2 minutes. I'll let it slide this time," Thomas joked. They ate together, all 5 of them, a strange patchwork family that worked. After dinner, while the kids played, Thomas pulled Jonathan aside. "You know, I've been thinking." "About what?" "About applying to be Jake's permanent foster parent. Officially. I've been his only family since Rachel died, but the paperwork, I never finalized it. And now that we have stability, you should do it. Jake's your son in every way that matters." "I know, but it costs money. Lawyers, court fees, and I'm still rebuilding savings." "I'll pay for it," Jonathan said immediately. "Jonathan, you gave me my daughter back. Let me help you keep your son." Thomas's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. Thank you for everything." December 24th, 1 year later. The Pierce mansion was full of people for Christmas Eve dinner. Sophie and Jake, now 10 and 8, best friends and basically siblings at this point. Thomas, who'd been promoted to VP of Operations at Pierce Financial Group. Maria and her family, because Jonathan had learned that family is whoever shows up. And Jonathan, sitting at the head of the table, phone off and put away, fully present. Before dinner, Sophie stood up. "I want to say something," she said nervously. "Go ahead, sweetheart," Jonathan encouraged. "Last year, on Christmas Eve, I ran away. I was so sad and angry because Daddy was always working, and I felt invisible. But then Thomas found me and brought me home, and everything changed." She looked at her father. "Daddy learned to come home. Thomas and Jake became our family, and I learned that sometimes the best Christmas presents aren't the expensive ones. They're the people who show up." She held up a small wrapped box. "So this year, I have a present for Thomas." Thomas opened it, confused. Inside was a photo frame with a picture from that first Christmas morning, all of them covered in flour, laughing in the kitchen. Below the photo, Sophie had written in careful handwriting, "To the man who brought me home and taught my dad what home means. Thank you for saving us. Love, Sophie." Thomas couldn't speak. He just hugged Sophie tight. Jonathan stood and raised his glass. "A year ago, I almost lost my daughter because I was too busy chasing money to notice her. Thomas Wright, a man who'd lost everything, taught me that the only wealth that matters is time with the people you love." He looked at Thomas. "You were homeless, broken, grieving, and you still stopped to help a stranger's child. That's the kind of man I want to be, the kind of father I want to be. So, here's to Thomas, to second chances, to showing up, and to the Christmas that changed everything." "To Christmas," everyone echoed. After dinner, Jonathan found Thomas on the back patio looking at the snow. "You okay?" Jonathan asked. "Yeah, just thinking about Emma and Rachel. Wishing they could see this. They can. I believe that." "Me too. You changed my life. You know that." "You changed mine too.
Gave me a reason to keep going when I didn't think I had one. We saved each other. Yeah, I guess we did. They stood together in the snow, watching through the windows as Sophie and Jake built a blanket fort in the living room. Two single fathers, two different stories, one shared truth. Family isn't about money. It's about showing up.
A homeless man found a CEO's daughter crying at a bus stop on Christmas Eve. He could have walked past, could have said it wasn't his problem, could have thought she had enough money to be fine. But Thomas Wright stopped, because that's what fathers do. And in saving Sophie, Thomas saved Jonathan too. Saved him from a life where he had everything and nothing, where he was rich and bankrupt, where he was successful and failing at the only thing that mattered. This Christmas, maybe you're like Jonathan was, working late, missing dinners, telling yourself you're doing it for your family, while your family waits for you to just show up. Or maybe you're like Thomas, broken, struggling, feeling like you have nothing to offer. But here's the truth both men learned. Presence is the greatest present. Time is the most valuable currency. And the people who love you don't need your money or your success. They just need you. So put down your phone, leave work early, sit on the floor and play. Make messy pancakes, watch their favorite movie for the 100th time. Show up. Because one day, you'll be Thomas, grieving what you lost. Or you'll be Jonathan, realizing almost too late what you almost lost. Don't wait. Show up now. They're waiting.
Thank you for watching this story. If it moved you, leave a butterfly in the comments and share your thoughts. Tell us what themes or stories you'd like to hear next. We love creating narratives that resonate with you. Subscribe to Becca's Stories channel for more stories about justice, legacy, resilience, and love. We present beautiful perspectives that emerge from life's changes, offering narratives of profound moral strength and unwavering character. And remember, the best gift you can give is your time. Until the next story,